Shri Sai Ram. Welcome to the 119th edition of Samarpan, an offering from the alumni and the Karnataka Sai organization at Bhagwan's Lotus Feet. Swami is always with you. This is indeed a wonderful theme to pursue and experience. Today's distinguished speaker, Dr. N. Shivakumar, originally from Coimbatore, 5 to 6 generations have been worshipping Lord Shiva in a specific paddhati. Dr. Shivakumar's family came to Bhagwan in the late 1970s, and their experiences in Vedam, in Sanskrit, in the Puja Paddhati, how Swami was always there with his father, how Swami guided his grandfather peacefully in Hampi. As we listen to all these experiences in retrospect and in these pandemic times, faith in Bhagwan, Swami is always with us, is the key. Dr. Shivakumar came to Bhagwan's College in 1982, and I think the association for the last 40 years with the college, with the faculty, with the Vedam, with Sanskrit, with dramatics, all bear testimony to this fact that Swami is always guiding our lives and Swami is always with us. Without taking much time, let us listen to Dr. N. Shivakumar with his wonderful, simple, straight experiences and how Swami guides him through his lifetime and the generations to come. Jai Sai Ram, and let us enjoy this 119th edition of the April 2021 Samarpan.
Om Sri Sai Ram. I offer my most prayerful pranams at Bhagwan's lotus feet, respected elders, dear brothers and sisters. Sai Ram to all of you. At the outset, I am extremely grateful to Bhagwan for giving me this opportunity to interact with all of you as a part of this Brindavan Samarpan program. I am also thankful to the organizers for giving me this very wonderful blessing and opportunity so that I would be able to recollect Bhagwan's stories and how Bhagwan has blessed our family with the assurance, I am always with you. So the underlying theme of this entire Samarpan talk would be, I am always with you. With that basic introduction, let me start at the beginning. It was Bhagwan's abundant blessings that Swami attracted our family into his fold very early in my life and as early as the 1970s. It was a very interesting story by which Swami attracted our family towards him. Normally, Shirdi Baba would tell that devotees are like a sparrow. One leg of that sparrow is tied to a thread and the other end of that thread is in Shirdi Baba's hands. So wherever the sparrow would like to fly, however far it would like to fly, at the end, as Shirdi Baba would pull back those strings, the sparrow or the bird would have to come back to Shirdi Baba himself. In our family too, it was like that. Swami gave us a very long rope, literally, physically, a very long rope, so that our family would ultimately come back to him. All this story started in the year 1967, the year I was born, and in that particular year, my father, Professor Neelakantan, who also later worked and got the opportunity to serve Bhagwan in Swami's hostel, he got an opportunity to do PhD in the area of food science and nutrition from the University of Nebraska, USA. I'm now talking of the late 1960s, where going abroad was not necessarily as common as it is today. Yet, my father's family encouraged him, and my father took the first steps to be the first person in our family to go outside India. I had just been born, and therefore, after a few months, my mother took me along with her to the United States. My father did his PhD from the United States, and his PhD was very successful to the extent that his Indian guide was so much attached to my father and his work that he did not want to leave him at any cost. As soon as my father finished his PhD, somewhere in the 1970s, early 1970s, to be precise, somewhere in 1970-71, he immediately got a job as a food scientist in NASA, the National Aerospace Research Center. And my father was very excited to join NASA, but as mentioned earlier, our family's one end of the string was attached and it was in Bhagwan's hands. So Swami realized that the time had come to pull us back to him. So my father was very eager to join the NASA, but as mentioned earlier, my father's research guide was so much attached to his work that he refused to give a permission for my father to leave the university and join NASA. Due to this, my father could not join NASA as a food scientist, which now I see as a great blessing in disguise. Swami was always with us from that moment and even before, and my father was little dejected because his research guide had refused permission. My father did not want to go back to the university. He applied for various jobs in the United States, but fortunately, as I can see today, he did not get any job. Even then, his plan for coming back to India was a little remote. He applied for jobs in Japan, Australia, the United Kingdom, and as per Swami's master plan, he did not get any job anywhere. Ultimately, in the year 1972, my father, along with family, that is myself and my mother, decided to come back to India because he had got a job in a place called Bareilly, which is close to New Delhi. He had got a job in the IVRI, Indian Veterinary Research Institute. The job he had got was much lesser than the qualification that was required because he had already completed his PhD from United States. Yet, because he didn't get any other job and he had a family to sustain, reluctantly, my father came back to India along with all of us. Yet, now I'm able to realize that Swami was there with us always and pulled us back to India. It was in this place called Bareilly that Swami physically entered into our family for the first time to the conscious knowledge of my parents. In Delhi, in Bareilly, it's essentially a North Indian place. So therefore, there were very few South Indian families like ours. And so therefore, all the South Indian families in that town, there were hardly 10-15 of them, got together just to ensure that they would be able to first of all interact in their own language, and secondly they would be able to celebrate a few functions or a few events which are common to them. So in that process, my father got acquainted with a captain in the Indian Air Force, and that captain was Bhagwan's devotee. He had with him volume 1 of Satyam Shivam Sundaram, which he gave to my father to go through. My father read that book and he was fascinated. He was so overjoyed reading about Bhagwan's message, Bhagwan's Leelas, Bhagwan's discourses, that he felt that he must also be willing to follow Bhagwan's message. Yet, to be totally convinced, he wanted a small miracle to happen at his end. So, in that particular volume 1, Kasturi ji writes about the Dasara celebrations that would happen at Prashanti Nilayam at Puttaparthi, because Prashanti Nilayam itself came only in the year 1950 at Puttaparthi, wherein Swami would be taken in a pallaki, a palanquin, around the village of Puttaparthi so that people could worship Bhagwan at their doorsteps, and Swami would bless all the people. The devotees would follow Bhagwan in a very strange manner. They would be walking in front of the pallaki, but because they didn't want to even miss a moments of darshan of Bhagwan, the devotees would walk actually facing Bhagwan backwards. These beautiful incidents are narrated by Kuppam Vijayamma in Anyatha Sharanam Nasti book in great detail. Of course, my father had not read that book, but he had read the details that had been provided in Satyam Shivam Sundaram. One particular incident that fascinated my father was during those regular processions, palanquin processions, Swami would give darshan to people as Mother Goddess. From Swami's forehead, kumkum would flow, turmeric powder would flow, and people would have Lord Sai Ma's darshan. And during those times, there would be basketfuls of flowers kept near Bhagwan on the palanquin, and as a part of his blessing, Swami would shower these flowers on the devotees. And the miracle would always be that when these flowers would fall, scatter on the devotees, they won't fall as flowers. Instead, they would fall as gold or silver coins with Shirdi Baba's face on one side, Mother Durga's face on the other side, or Shirdi Baba's face and Balaji Venkateshwara Swami's face on the other side. So that is how devotees would pick up those such coins and keep them as Bhagavan's blessings to them. Interestingly, that captain from Air Force who had given this Satyam Shivam Sundaram book to my father, he also possessed one such coin. And my father was happy to see that coin, and mentally at that time he prayed to Bhagavan, Swami, you have entered our life in a mysterious manner. First of all, you sent us to the other part of the globe, United States, and after that ensured that we would once again come back to India, the Punya Bhumi, where you are. And now, through this book, you have entered our family. But Swami, I have this particular prayer. I have seen the coin that the captain has with him. Swami, please bless me also with one such coin. If I am also blessed with one such coin, my father prayed to Bhagavan, then myself and my family would also get involved in your mission, and we would be blessed to be your devotees. This was a prayer from a sincere heart, and Bhagavan is always ready to bless anyone who are sincere. Bhagavan always tells, Swami always tells, test is my taste. My father wanted to test the efficacy of his prayer, and Bhagavan was waiting to ensure that this test would be successful. Let me repeat, my father had prayed to Swami for a gold coin having Shirdi Baba's face on one side and Venkateshwara Swami or Durga Mata's face on the other side, which Swami would create as a part of his blessings in early 1950s. The event Swami had stopped all these Dasara functions after Swami shifted base from Pata Mandiram in Puttaparthi to Prashantinile. In the 1960s, the Veda Purusha Saptaha Jnana Yajnam had started, so there were no such palanquin processions at all. So my father was praying for a type of blessing which Swami had done more than 20 years before in 1970. So, but of course, as I just mentioned, test is Bhagavan's test. So things were going on smoothly. As mentioned, there were just a handful of South Indian families in that Bareilly place. So they all decided that they would pool some minimal resources that they have, and they would build a place where they all could congregate. And the best way they thought that they could do that was to build a temple. So with appropriate permissions and with whatever minimal resources that they had, they pooled the money, bought a small place, and they started building a temple for Balaji Venkateshwara Swami. This was a pure South Indian temple in the Hindi heartland in early 1970s. The temple was soon constructed, and I still remember very faintly the Kumbhabhishekam of that temple. All those things happened. Constructing the temple is one thing, but its daily maintenance is a totally different thing. So the organizers, that is the South Indian families, searched for some person who would do the daily puja there. and they could only find a person who knew how to do the puja in the North Indian ritualistic style, what is technically called as the Paddhati. He knew how to do the puja in the North Indian Paddhati. Many people would know that even when we chant Vedam, it would be sounding slightly different from the way the Pandits in North India chant. There are different styles of chanting Vedam, and there are different rituals, the way they are performed. There are differences between how North Indians and South Indians do. This is a part of their custom. So therefore, the South Indian families who had actually built that particular temple, they wanted the puja to be done in the Paddhati or the way they knew always, the South Indian way. So they searched for a person they couldn't find, they could only find a North Indian pujari. However, they singled out on my father to help that pujari. This was because our family, from my grandfather, my father's grandfather, all of us had this traditional puja system at home. Even today, at my home here, we have a Shiva Lingam which has been gifted to us since several generations, and we perform that puja regularly in the same manner, same paddhati, which must have been done 5-6 generations before. So therefore, there is a South Indian puja tradition which flows through our family. So therefore, for me, learning the mantrams and stotrams was not something unique. In fact, I wouldn't have specially learnt them at all. At home, grandparents would chant them regularly. My parents would chant them regularly. Just by hearing them itself, a lot of these mantrams, stotrams, I myself would have learnt. A little later, of course, I also got the opportunity to learn Vedam when I was studying in school. I'll come to that a bit later. But as mentioned, the cultural tradition flows through our family, and therefore the South Indian families at Bareilly requested my father to assist that pujari by chanting the mantrams so that the pujari would do the puja appropriately. This was happening on a daily basis. My father would go for a short while in the morning for the puja and also for a short while in the evening for the puja, so that the regular puja would happen in the way the people wanted it. Every evening, my father would wait till the pujari finished all the work, and both of them together would close the temple and move out. Now, the pujari would do the puja daily. At the end of the puja, we know there is a Mangalarati. And in the South Indian tradition, once the Mangalarati is done, the pujari brings that plate with the Arati flame and shows it to the devotees. The devotees would take that flame, and many devotees would also, as a part of their offering, they would also offer some money in that particular plate in which the pujari would show the Arati flame. Normally, in all temples, the rule is that whatever money falls in the puja plate goes to the maintenance of the pujari, and whatever money falls into the hundi which is kept in the temple, that goes towards the maintenance of the temple. This is the normal rule in all temples. So the pujari would take whatever money had fallen in that plate, puja plate. He would collect, take his daily collections, and he will move, and my father would assist him in closing the temple and go back home. One day, as the pujari was counting his collections, taking his collections, he suddenly saw one particular coin and told my father See, nowadays, people are not sincere at all. My father was surprised. The pujari continued telling, see, not only they cheat others, they even cheat God. My father was even more intrigued. He asked the pujari what happened. See, the pujari gave a coin to my father and told, see, here is some fake coin. My father took that coin, saw it, and tears started streaming in his eyes. It was exactly that gold coin. On one side was Shirdi Baba's Vigraham, Murti. On the other side was Venkateshwara Swami's face. My father had prayed for one such coin and it mysteriously appeared in the pujari's plate. Because the pujari did not know about Shirdi Baba, he thought it was some fake coin and gave it away to my father and told my father to keep it. My father was literally stunned seeing that coin because he had prayed to Swami for exactly that type of coin. However, my father wanted to be fully sincere. He immediately went to the captain's house and asked him whether by mistake he had dropped that coin in the puja plate that day. That captain told he had not done any such thing. In fact, the coin that he had was still there in his altar. My father knew every single person who came to the temple that day because I told you it was a handful of people who would always visit the temple regularly. So he went to every single person and asked whether by mistake they had dropped that coin. None of them could even recognize that coin, and my father realized that it was Bhagwan. In order to give him that blessing and that assurance that he is always there with us, had mysteriously dropped that coin in that puja plate. And my father, as he had prayed earlier and as he had promised earlier, became more interested in Bhagwan's teachings and Bhagwan's activities. Very soon after this incident, my father got transferred to a place in Tamil Nadu called Coimbatore. Now, Coimbatore has one of India's oldest agricultural universities, the Tamil Nadu Agricultural University. It had a food science division department, and my father joined as a professor of food science, which was equivalent to the degree, the professional as well as academic qualification that he had, and he joined that department in Coimbatore. Coimbatore had been a very blessed place because Bhagavan has visited Coimbatore any number of times. Coimbatore was a reasonably big city. Now Coimbatore is a much bigger city. I'm talking of close to 50 years before. Coimbatore was at that time itself a reasonably big city, and it was a city where Swami could stay anytime overnight on his way to Ooty, or Swami would regularly go to Udumalpet, or Swami would go further to Karur, Salem, and all those places. And Coimbatore was a very nice place where Swami could stay. So Swami had visited Coimbatore many times. Swami had also inaugurated in Coimbatore a temple called the Nagasai Mandiram. Again, a Shirdi Baba temple inaugurated by Bhagavan. And Coimbatore had a very active Satya Sai Seva Samiti. As soon as my father got a job in Coimbatore, we also shifted down very soon. And by the year 1973-74, all regular activities related to Bhagavan started at our home also, which included the weekly Sai Bhajan and weekly Bal Vikas classes at our home. So our house was a Bhajan Mandali. And I was very young, possibly some 7-8 years old. And for me, all these things became a part of my regular upbringing. I never questioned at any point of time anything about Swami. For me, Swami became a natural part of my life. I didn't have any feeling that Swami is somebody separate. Swami was a natural part of my growing up. So I continued to study in Coimbatore, and in my around 6th to 7th class at Coimbatore, my father ensured that my Upanayanam was performed, and very shortly my father got a Pandit from the Kanchi Mutt who had settled down in Coimbatore to come and teach Vedam mantrams at our home. I must have been somewhere in my 7th, 8th, around that time. And he used to come every day regularly to our home. And actually speaking, originally he had been called to our home to teach my father Vedam mantrams. So my father was learning, and I would go to games in the evening, play within the colony, and I would come back and I would be listening very intermittently what the Pandit was teaching my father. And to my father's surprise, he found that I could chant those mantrams, those Vedam mantrams, even by simply listening it while walking up and down. So he thought that I should also learn the Vedam mantram. So he insisted that I should also sit with him and start learning. Initially, I resisted because it was prime games time, evening games time. But I had no choice. I started learning Vedam mantrams. I remember learning it possibly for some 3 years or little more, without even knowing that later in my life that would come to be a great blessing. Swami, even without my knowledge, ensured that he was always there with me, with our family, and ensured that I would learn Vedam. And that was one very important way that Swami ensured that I would get that opportunity to be closer to Bhagavan. I finished my 10th standard in Coimbatore in 1982. But before that, I would just like to tell, when Swami enters into our family, into anybody's family, he ensures that anything that happens not only happens for the good, but also happens in the most enjoyable or most beneficent manner. The story that I am going to narrate now relates to my grandfather. My grandfather was a lawyer by profession, but also a Sanskrit Pandit. I remember him reading voluminous Sanskrit books after his retirement as a lawyer. He came and settled down with us in Coimbatore, and when he was going through the newspapers, one day he saw that a trust in Hampi, which is in Karnataka, they had started a activity. The name of that trust was Vidyaranya Trust. Vidyaranya was the minister of Krishna Deva Raya. Krishna Deva Raya belongs to that region of Rayalaseema. Because of Krishna Deva Raya, that region is called as Rayalaseema, which includes Anantapur district and includes Puttaparthi. Swami would always tell that this place is called Rayalaseema, and Bhagavan came and it became a place called Ratnalaseema. So my grandfather had this opportunity in a very indirect manner to be connected with Rayalaseema, which is Bhagavan's own place. A trust by name, Vidyaranya Trust, had been formed because this person, Vidyaranya, was a great Sanskrit scholar who had written several Sanskrit books, including very high level philosophical books. So the Vidyaranya Trust had been formed to ask people whether they would be interested in reading through these books and translate them into English for the benefit of the larger public. My grandfather saw this advertisement of the Vidyaranya Trust. He was very much interested. He was a Sanskrit scholar and he was very good at English too. And so he applied and he got that wonderful blessing of translating Vidyaranya's books into English. I still remember, and we do have one or two of those books. He would be very sincerely reading those books and he would be writing in English, lots of details. And in the year 1981, when he, along with few others, had translated a good number of Vidyaranya's books into English, all these people who had volunteered, they were all called Hampi for a felicitation ceremony. So the Vidyaranya Trust wanted to felicitate all these people. So my grandfather went along with my younger uncle there, and he attended that particular function. And why I'm narrating this story is to show how Swami was always with us, our family. This was a function of great Sanskrit Pandits. I know from my uncle that lot of the proceedings of that particular function did not even happen in English or Kannada. It actually happened in Sanskrit. People could converse with each other so fluently in Sanskrit. My grandfather was felicitated in that function, and he also got an opportunity to address that audience again in Sanskrit. He seemed so satisfied with what work he had done. He seemed so happy with the life that he had led. After finishing his oration, he came back onto among the audience where he was seated next to my uncle. He came, sat on his seat, closed his eyes, and in that place itself, he passed away peacefully, absolutely peacefully. In fact, as per our family tradition, and in many families, this is a very interesting stotram or a prayer that we chant. Anayasena maranam vina dainyena jivanam dehi me kripaya shambho tvayi bhakti achanchalam. So, anayasena maranam. When death comes, it should come so peacefully that you should just merge into time. And that is how Swami told and showed to us that he was always with our family, that he just took my grandfather peacefully into his lap. it was a great blessing for all of us. Even though there was all that sorrow that we lost our grandfather, yet we knew internally that he had lived a life full of happiness and fulfillment, that when the time came, he just merged into Bhagavan, and that too effortlessly. That happened in the year 1981, and Swami's assurance that I am always with you all continued. In the year 1982, when I finished my 10th class, at our family, there was nothing like a choice as to in which school will I further continue at Coimbatore. That particular thought didn't arise at all. There were only two choices for me. The choice was whether I would continue studying in Swami's junior college, PUC college at Brindavan, or would I continue my studies in Swami's higher secondary school, which had just been established that year at Prashanti Nilayam. So these were the only two choices. I applied for both of them. I got admission for both the places, that is at Brindavan as well as at Parthi. But Swami made me choose Brindavan for the only simple reason that the Brindavan selection letter reached me just some 2-3 days before the Parthi selection letter. That's all. There was no other specific reason as to why I chose Brindavan over Parthi. So in the year 1982, in the month of June, it was my blessing, great blessing, that I got the opportunity to join for my first PUC, which is the 11th class at Brindavan. And Swami kept on assuring me, kept on assuring our family that he is always with us. The first assurance that came was that as I joined Brindavan campus, in the very same year, Swami motivated my elder sister to join the Anantapur campus. I joined for my first PUC 11th class, and she joined for her first BSc at Anantapur campus. Both children at home left at the very same time to different places. My parents normally must have felt suddenly that the home has become desolate without children. Swami was always there, assuring that we were there with him. They never felt anything untoward, even though both the children had left the home at the same time. Not only that, for me especially, coming to Brindavan and joining Brindavan campus was like a fish entering into a pond. I didn't find it difficult at all from day one to get adjusted to the environment of Brindavan. I enjoyed every moment of my stay as a student at Brindavan. It was an extraordinary journey. My sister had some teething troubles adjusting to the Anantapur campus, but very soon she started loving that place so much that even though after her BSc, there was no way she could continue in the Anantapur campus because it didn't have any postgraduate degree. Yet somehow she wanted to continue at least by staying in the hostel and studying in the close by SK University. That was the amount of attachment Swami built in us towards him. He kept on assuring us, I am always with you. I joined, as I told you, in the year 1982, and I realized at that time how my father, through the inspiration of Bhagavan, insisted that I should learn Vedam at home. To my surprise, I found that whatever mantrams, Vedam mantrams were being chanted by students at Brindavan, I already knew them, because of which I could easily join any Vedam chanting at Brindavan, and it was a extraordinary opportunity that Swami gave multiple chances for Vedam students, and I got all those chances as a part of Bhagavan's blessing. I did not know a few years back that whatever I had learnt at that time would be so useful and so wonderful when I actually joined the Brindavan campus. I was a very young boy, just 16 years old, when I joined Brindavan. In fact, I used to see the senior students, because Brindavan had till third year undergraduate. So students who were 5 years elder to me were also studying in Brindavan at that time. And I used to wonder at them. I used to see how great these people are. I started enjoying Brindavan, and Swami came to Brindavan regularly, and it was a beautiful, wonderful time with Bhagavan, especially as a very young boy. The tremendous innocence is there within us, and that innocence would attract us to Bhagavan so much. Let me just try to recollect and narrate a few such incidents that I remember when I was a very young lad of just 16 years old in Bhagavan's educational institution at Brindavan. One day, just for the information of everyone, when I joined the Brindavan campus, there were also students who were day scholars. That means that they could come from their homes, wherever they were living in and around Bangalore or Kadugodi, and they would also come and study in the campus. So it was both hostelers as well as day scholars who would study together. And because of this, there was no such restriction or rule that students must necessarily wear whites to either darshan or to the college. Students could even wear colored dress. So therefore, one day I checked my whites, and I found that there was a small stain in my white shirt and some slightly bigger stain in my white pant. So therefore I thought I won't wear them. So instead I wore a slightly dark color pant and a something like a t-shirt, but to ensure that it won't look like a t-shirt, on that t-shirt I also wore a sweater, and it did not really reflect a Sai student. I still remember, as I was about to enter the gates of Brindavan for morning darshan, in fact the Sevadal, I remember, asking me, "Are you a student?" Because as I told you, my dress did not really reflect the qualities of a Sai student. I went, and in those days the students would be simply standing, and Swami would go give darshan to the students, walk alongside the students, and then go to the Sai Ram shed which was there, where devotees would be seated, and Swami would bless all the devotees with a wonderful darshan and come back, and he would give his interviews, and we would all, after the darshan, would walk and go to the college for our regular classes. So that day I was standing. Some of my senior students came and told me, "What is the dress that you are wearing? Your doesn't look appropriate at all. Why don't you go and change and come into something more which suits the particular occasion?" Somehow I was a little bit adamant, telling that anyway it's not compulsory, whites are not compulsory. So therefore I was just waiting and having Bhagwan's darshan like that. Swami came gliding by, and again I just want to tell all of you, Swami wants to assure us he is always with us. So therefore he came near me, saw me from top to down for a moment, and that is the very beautiful way Bhagavan communicates. Swami would never tell anything as a displeasure with us. So he saw me top to down and in a very humorous manner told, you look like a film star, and then just walked to give further darshans to the devotees. Immediately the senior students told me, see, this is the appropriate you should wear, go and change and come. I immediately ran back to my room as Bhagavan was giving darshan in the Sai Ram shed. I ran to my room, and this time I decided that at least, if not the pant, at least I'll change the shirt into a white shirt. Even though there was a small stain, I told let it remain and I will change it into the shirt. So I removed the sweater and the t-shirt and I wore a white shirt and came and stood back in for darshan. Swami once again came, saw me, and this time Swami commented, oh, you have changed so quickly. This was Bhagavan's love towards all of us. He continuously keeps watching us. I also remember this very innocent but very beautiful incident that happened. I was seated just near Swami's chair during one of the evening bhajan sessions. Swami came and sat down. He saw me, a very young lad, and he asked me, where do you come from? I was so excited because that was the first time Swami was asking me something and I had to reply. So in my excitement, I replied, Swami, Coimbatore. I know none of you would have been able to understand what I just now told. Swami also made a face that he could not understand anything of what I told. He once again asked me, where do you come from? Again, I replied in all my enthusiasm and excitement, Swami, Coimbatore. Swami laughed and then told, tell slowly. It was at that time I realized that in my excitement, I had literally screamed Coimbatore as Coimbatore. Nobody could understand which place was it, and that after Swami asked me for the third time, I replied to Swami, Swami, I am from Coimbatore. Oh, that time only Swami realized Coimbatore. Why don't you tell it slowly? I realized that I had in my excitement told so fast that nobody could understand. That was a very beautiful short interaction that Swami wanted also me to learn that when we have this interaction with Bhagavan, we must be full of bhakti, that we should be able to necessarily communicate slowly whatever we wanted to communicate. In fact, my very first lesson in communication came from Bhagavan, and it was this. I also remember this incident because I was a personal witness to this, though this incident didn't happen to me. But I was a personal witness to this, which happened again in the year 1982. Bhagavan in the evening came for darshan for students, because Swami in those days could not go for evening darshans to the devotees. Only on Thursdays and Sundays there would be evening darshans. On all other days there would be darshan for the students, and Swami would call all of us inside for having bhajan sessions. So Swami came out, pointed out to a particular student and asked him, "What did you do today at afternoon 3 o'clock?" The student was surprised. What did I do at 3 o'clock? He was thinking and he replied, "Swami, I was standing here to have your darshan." Swami told, "Think carefully before you reply." He told, "Yes, Swami, I was standing here to have your darshan at 3 o'clock." Swami told, "Then, if that is so, what did that poor monkey do?" I was standing next to that boy and I could hear Swami talking. I was totally confused. What is Swami talking about? What did the boys do at 3 o'clock? And what was that? What happened to that poor monkey? It was totally surprising to me. I didn't understand. Even that boy feigned ignorance. He told Swami, "What are you talking about, Swami? I'm not able to comprehend." Then Swami told, "Today, exactly at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, you were waiting here in front of this Brindavan bungalow, Swami's bungalow, for darshan." During those days, even though Swami would come down only around 4:15 for giving darshan to students, in the middle Swami would open the windows and see the students, whoever would be there, and Swami would give them beautiful darshans. We all would be waiting for those window darshans, as they were popularly called. Swami told, "You were waiting for one such window darshan at 3 o'clock, and the Brindavan was truly a forest with so many trees." And Swami told, in one of the trees nearby, there was a monkey sitting there, also waiting to have my darshan. And you, without knowing that, took a stone and threw that at that monkey and shooed it away. The student, after that, only realized that what he had done, very, very casually. He had not even thought about any of those things. He had just seen a monkey, so he had just shooed it away by throwing a stone. And he had even forgotten about it totally. Swami remembered that and told that student, "Why did you shoo away that monkey? What did that poor monkey do?" The student then realized it was his mistake. He prayed to Bhagavan for pardon, and Swami told, "In this particular creation of mine, everybody is important. Don't assume that my darshans go only to people like you, human beings. Everybody is waiting for my darshan, including that monkey." And Swami gave us a beautiful lesson that day as to how we should regard all other creatures as equally deserving of the divine grace. I also remember on this occasion one more incident which Bhagavan used to drive into us the power of patriotism. I remember when in my 11th class standard and 12th standard, General Kariyappa, who later became Field Marshal Kariyappa, would regularly visit Brindavan. At that time, I'm talking of 1980s, he was close to 90 years old. And the people would very respectfully come and keep a chair for him to sit down. He won't. He would stand erect, straight. Not only that, if he found some student standing or sitting a little bit stooping, he would actually correct it and told that stand erect and stand straight. Whenever it was General Kariyappa's visit to Brindavan, all of us would be always in erect position, because not only he maintained that, he also would request all the students to expect all the students to maintain that. And Swami would give tremendous respect to that very, very elderly devotee and would make all of us follow him as a role model. I remember always it would happen that when Swami would, whenever Kariyappa was there, Swami would go and give darshan to all the devotees come back. Swami would call Kariyappa, and Kariyappa would come. All of us would surround and stand around Swami, and Swami would tell Kariyappa, Helu, Matadu. And Kariyappa had only one topic to speak on, not more than one topic. Just one topic he would speak on, and that was Bharat Mata and patriotism. He had seen several battles in which India had participated, and therefore, for him, patriotism was flowing through his blood. And he would invariably exhort the students to be devoted to our motherland, and Swami would enjoy every single moment. That was the way we learned how much Swami gave importance to this beautiful Sanskrit statement, Janani Janma Bhumischa Swargadapi Gariyasi. Mother and motherland are even more important than heaven itself. So Swami would make us all imbibe that wonderful idea of patriotism. At the end, Kariyappa would invariably end his talk by asking all of us to raise our hands and shout out from our full-throated shout out, Jai Bharat Mata. I remember we all would have to shout, and Swami would encourage each one of us to raise our hands and shout it in full strength. And Swami would ask Kariyappa, did everybody shout properly? Kariyappa would be noting. If any student did not raise his hand fully, that means he had raised his hand like this. Or if the student had not exerted himself while shouting, Kariyappa would point out, told Swami, he did not shout properly. Swami would immediately call that student and very lovingly chide him. Tell that, shout as Kariyappa is telling you to do. And that student would have to do individually, raise his hand and shout out full-throated, Jai Bharat Mata. That was the beautiful way by which Swami instilled in each and every one of us this love towards this motherland. Yet another incident where Swami showed that he was always with me, always with our family, was again in my 11th standard in the year 1982. Few of the students who knew Tamil language, and Tamil is my mother tongue, they all came together, and for the Independence Day in that particular year, they all decided to put up a Tamil drama. And for the people from Tamil Nadu, they know this very famous freedom fighter and patriot, Veera Pandiya Kattabomman. So the drama's name was Kattabomman, a king who fought against the British valorously. So that particular drama was in Tamil. It was put up as a part of the Independence Day program. Even though I was a person who knew Tamil, for some reason, the seniors, they felt that there were enough number of students who knew Tamil language, and therefore they did not select me because I was one among the most junior students in the campus at that time. I also did not take it seriously. I knew that they had number of people, so I just kept quiet. After that Independence Day program, after a few weeks, Swami came to Brindavan, and Swami was inquiring from the principal and the warden what events had happened at Brindavan, and they mentioned to Swami that this particular drama had been put up. Swami immediately told, tell the students to put up the drama once again in front of me. It was a great blessing for the students, especially the Tamil speaking students, because this was a Tamil drama which was enacted by the students in front of Bhagavan. The drama went off very well. As you all knew, I was not a part of the drama at all, as I had just mentioned. I was nothing to do with the drama. But Swami wanted to show that he had always noticed me and he was always with me. The next day after the drama, I was standing for darshan. Swami came near me and asked me in Tamil. There is the beauty. asked me in Tamil, "Unaku Tamil theriyuma?" I told, "Theriyum Swami." I also know Tamil. Swami asked me, "Do you know Tamil?" I told, "Yes, Swami, I know Tamil." Then Swami asked me, "Nethiki yen drama la illa? If you know Tamil, why were you not there in the drama yesterday?" I did not reply back anything because I knew it was the seniors who had decided who all had to be in the drama, and I was never worried about it. But what gave me a lot of joy was I was just one among the several students of Brindavan. There were at least 300 to 400 students in Brindavan, of which more than 200 were there in the hostel itself. Yet, Swami singled out me and asked me why I was not there in that drama. A great blessing to assure us that he was always with us, taking care of us. We had a very wonderful opportunity to be with Bhagavan, to be in Vrindavan. I completed my 12th standard in the year 1984. Swami was there in Vrindavan. I went to Bhagavan and prayed to him, "Swami, you should bless me to do further studies." Swami asked, "What have you finished?" I told Swami, "I have finished my 12th class." Swami told, "Join UG." So, with Swami's blessings, I continued my BCom studies at Brindavan. And as I was doing that in the year 1985, it was the 60th birthday. And 60th birthday was one of the grandest celebrations of those times. The number of devotees were huge. It was during that birthday, even the Shanti Vedika in the Hillview Stadium was inaugurated because all the functions were held there. It was a very grand function. It was during that particular year the planetarium was inaugurated. It was during that very same year the administrative building of the university was inaugurated. Because I had learnt Vedam before joining Brindavan and I was very active as a part of the Vedam group, Swami selected very few people to be a part of the Vedam chanting that year. It must have been possibly some 15 people. And they were all very, very senior. And in spite of that, Swami gave me this wonderful opportunity to be a part of that Vedam group. So I got this opportunity. I was one among the very first people whom Swami actually blessed with a red dhoti and Angavastram. I remember even today going into the planetarium as a part of the inauguration, chanting Vedam. I remember going from Mandir till administrative building on top of the hill. We chanted Vedam as Swami came behind us in that chariot till the topmost of the administrative building. We had all these wonderful opportunities chanting Vedam. Apart from chanting Vedam as a part of the Dasara celebrations. It was so beautiful staying in Brindavan. Swami was extremely kind, extremely pleased, and always kept on blessing us. I remember this particular incident. This happened in the year 1986, somewhere in the month of March. It was the examination season, and Swami came and saw all of us a little bit tensed. So morning 8 o'clock he had called all of us because the exams would start at 9 o'clock. He called all of us by morning 8 o'clock, and through the principal, Professor Narendra, at that time, Swami gave a very short but very impactful discourse, which is actually used even today for students for preparing for exam. I remember Swami telling us, always pray to Bhagavan before you start the exam, which we always normally do. And very beautifully Swami told, when you start the exam, start by attempting all the questions which you know nicely. If you write those answers, it will build up your confidence. Not only that, it will also create a good image in the evaluator. And later, the questions which you know lesser or you feel are difficult, answer them towards the end. We were all very happy listening to that. I remember that day, my exam was the English exam. English had always been a little bit tough for me for the simple reason we were one among the very first batches of the university. The university was evolving its English course. So there was no fixed syllabus as such. We had to study many things and there was no fixed textbook from which we could expect things. It would come from anywhere. So English was always a little tough for me. If at all I got a lower grade, it was only in English. All other subjects I could manage comfortably. That day was English exam. I was a little bit nervous. Swami saw the nervousness in many students, and we were just a little bit more than 100 students in the entire hostel. By then, it was only the hostel students. There were no more day scholars. Swami made all of us sit in two rows that is facing each other. So Swami first gave all of us Pada Namaskar and told, you will all write the exams well. But Swami, as he reached the other end, where he had given Pada Namaskar, somehow Swami himself didn't felt fully happy. He told, I need to bless all of you more. And then he asked all of us, take out the pens with which you are all going to write the exam today. So we all had a pen in our hand. Individually, Swami came and blessed each one of our pens and told, fine, very good. As he reached the other end, he felt some more blessings was required. And that was the day when I found the pure Saima. Extraordinary blessings of Bhagavan. Swami came, created Vibhuti and applied to each and every one of the 100+ students. Swami went to each and every one of us, applied Vibhuti and then went. At the end of it, Swami felt so satisfied. He told, now you all go and write the exam. So we wrote the exam. I wrote the exam quite decently. I won't tell bad, quite decently. Evening, I was sitting there and Swami asked me, how did you write the exam? Of course, I had not written extraordinarily well, but as well at the same time, not very bad. But Swami saw me and made a face, in a very sad manner. He made a face and told, just pass. I was shocked. I had not really written that I will just pass. But I realized a month later the inner meaning of what Swami meant, just pass, and what were the standards that Swami was expecting from each and every one of us. The students of the institute would understand the grading system of our institute. When we were students, it was a 5-point grade and anything above 70 was considered O grade, which means technically I had got 72 in the internals. I needed 68 in the externals out of 100 to get an overall O grade, because 72 plus 68 would make it overall 70. However, if you get 68, it is an external A grade only. I also learned that any student who gets a 69 is not kept at 69, it is pushed by 1 mark and made 70. My external grades and the overall grades came to me. I had internal O grade 72, but external I saw it was only A grade. At overall it was O grade, which means that I could have got only these 2 marks, 68 or 69, in order to get an overall O grade. But as I just mentioned, had I got 69, it would have been made 70, so I would have got an external also O grade. But I got an external A grade, which means that I got exactly that 68 marks. Swami had told 1 month before, just to pass. I had exactly passed in Swami's calculation. For Swami's calculation, O grade was real pass. That was the high standards that he expects from each and every one of us. So I passed with an O grade, just passed with an O grade, and Swami kept assuring, don't worry, I'm always with you. I would like to end the Samarpan session as to what happened in the month of December of 1986 and followed by a few months after that. In the month of December 1986, there was this CAT exam, Common Admission Test for MBAs, especially the IIMs, Indian Institute of Management, which is held. And after BCom, I was supposed to complete my BCom in the year 1987. So after BCom, I was interested in doing an MBA. So in the month of December 1986, Swami was there in Vrindavan. I went, as Swami came for darshan, I stood up on my knees and prayed to Swami, Swami, bless me to write the CAT exam. Swami asked me immediately, what is this CAT exam? And then I told Swami, CAT exam is the admission test to join MBA in IIMs. Swami immediately turned towards me and asked, is not MBA there in our institute itself? In the year 1986, Swami had started the MBA program in our institute. I told it was there. Then immediately we were 200 plus students, and outside there were close to somewhere around 5,000 plus devotees waiting for Bhagwan's darshan. Swami stood in front of me and started telling me why it is important for me to continue studying in Swami's institute. So Swami told, you will never get such a divine atmosphere outside. You won't get such wonderful teachers outside. You will get the same degree, MBA, which you want to study outside. Why do you want to go and study outside? Swami was, in fact, Swami was telling me why I should continue studying in the institute. The moment Swami had originally told MBA is there in our institute, at that moment itself, I had forgotten about the outside institute. I was thinking only about our institute. Yet, in all his love, Swami kept on advising me that I should continue studying. But Swami always has the master plan and the master punch, as it is sometimes told in some some plays and dramas, that there is always some punch dialogue. Swami always has that punch dialogue with him. And this punch dialogue happened this way. Swami was talking to me. Between me and Swami, there must have been approximately around 1 to 2 feet gap. From nowhere, and this is very strange, it can never happen inside Trayi Brindavan compound. From nowhere, suddenly a stray dog came. It came little bit farther away from us, and at a particular moment, it simply ran between me and Bhagwan. That small gap of 2 feet, it ran in between myself and Bhagwan and ran away somewhere. We did not know why such a stray dog should ever come during darshan time, but it attracted everybody's attention and it distracted Swami's thought to me. But Swami used that as a very powerful way of communicating something. Moment Swami saw the dog running away, Swami saw towards me, and Swami pointing towards the dog told, did you see that dog? I told, yes, Swami. And then Bhagavan made one of the greatest powerful statements which I can remember even this today. Swami told, if you go outside, you will roam like that dog. It was so impactful that I immediately prayed to Bhagwan that he should continue blessing me, that I should continue studying in Swami's institute only. Swami told, however, you have already applied for CAT exam. Go write and come. It will be a very good practice for our institute's MBA entrance, because our institute's MBA entrance is also tough. So with Swami's blessings, I wrote, but with hardly any interest, because I was more interested now in studying in Swami's institute. The February of 1987 was my birthday. My father had come to Brindavan, and Swami called me and my father for an interview, and there he chided my father, "You are wanting to send him out. Why? He must study in our institute only." My father was shocked. He realized how Swami wanted us to be close to him. Whatever happened, Swami was holding that thread and pulling us towards him always and always. At the end, my father prayed to Swami, "Swami, I pray to you for only one blessing." And Swami asked, "What is that blessing?" And so my father told, "Swami, bless him with a seat in your institute for the MBA program." I can even feel this particular moment. Swami kept his hand on my head and told, "Blessed." In the year 1986, in the year 1987, I got admission into the MBA program in the second batch of the MBA students at Prashant Nilayam. My MBA program was also very, very eventful, very enjoyable. After that, it was just to be with Bhagavan. At the end of the MBA program, Swami called my parents and told that send him to Parthi, pointing towards me, send him to Parthi. I will bless him with a PhD seat. It was with Swami's blessings that I was enrolled as the first PhD candidate in the management department of the institute. I could complete the PhD program, and with Bhagwan's blessings, I continued teaching. First at the Prashant Nilayam campus from the year 1989 onwards, and then continued to teach in the Brindavan campus from the year 1987 onwards. It has been a very wonderful journey, how Bhagavan ensured that he would always be with us and our family. I can only be extremely grateful to Bhagavan and thankful for everything that he has done to us and our family. Not only the generations before me, the generations after me. My son also got this wonderful opportunity of studying in Bhagwan's institution since his first standard. He finished his BCom during the last academic year, and the coming academic year he is going to apply for the MBA program. In spite of all the pandemic and the fear surrounding it, if we continue to hold on to Bhagavan, Bhagavan's blessings will always be there with us, and Bhagavan's assurance and protection will be always with us. That protection is what will always keep us in good stead. That protection will always keep us happy. That protection will always make us realize that Swami is always with us, taking care of us, protecting us, and blessing us. I, at the end, pray to Bhagavan that we should always realize that he is with us, protecting us continuously. We must always have that feeling within us that Swami is indeed our Hridaya Vasi. Brindavan is indeed our Hridaya Brindavan. I once again am grateful to Bhagavan for giving me this opportunity to narrate these very sweet experiences that I enjoy every moment with Bhagavan. And I am also grateful to the organizers for giving me this wonderful opportunity to share these experiences with everyone. Thank you. Jai Sai Ram.
Thank you, Dr. N. Shivkumar. As we soak this 121 minutes of your experiences, we are indeed overwhelmed with joy. Dr. Neelakantan did his PhD in the University of Nebraska, and for 1 year he couldn't get a suitable placement in United States. Though he was offered a job in NASA, he couldn't pursue it thanks to his PhD guides. feelings of not continuing for NASA but in the University of Nebraska. But finally, the Almighty had plans that you had to ship base from Nebraska to Bareilly in Uttar Pradesh. The building of a temple in Uttar Pradesh, following the puja paddhati every day, was indeed an amazing blessing to note. Your father's transfer to Coimbatore and your association with the Nagasai Mandiram and Vedas was equally inspiring. Your grandfather's work in Sanskrit and how Swami guided him in his final journey was indeed another faith inducing experience. How a student's casual behavior with a monkey, and how Swami said his darshan is not only for we humans but also for the whole of humanity and all the creatures taking birth, was an invaluable experience shared. The Veerabandiya Kattabomman experience, Swami conversing with you in Tamil, General Kariyappa's posture and talk in front of Bhagwan, and how Swami induced faith for the country was indeed another invaluable lesson. Your journey in Vedas, your journey with the Institute, how Swami enrolled you as the first management research scholar and you did your PhD from our esteemed university. I think that's an ultimate blessing which we all can aspire for maybe in our next births. Also, the fact that in a sparrow's two legs, if one leg wants to go free, the other leg string is pulled back by Shirdi Sai Baba. The Pallaki experience of 1950s and how devotees used to walk backwards to have every second darshan of Bhagwan was again a deeply involving experience. And how your father's desire to get that similar coin with Shirdi Sai Baba one side and Durga Mata the other side, and aspiring it for years, for it 20 years later, and Swami granting that wish was another great experience. Finally, I think we only can conclude Vedas, Sanskrit, food science, Nebraska, Bareilly, Coimbatore, Puttaparthi, Brindavan. Space or distances doesn't matter. What matters is the faith in the Almighty. And may Bhagwan continue to bless even more your future generations. And we all indeed thank from the bottom of our hearts for this great experience and your finesse with which you spoke, the ease with which you chant Vedas, the ease with which you did management, the ease with which you publish papers in insurance or national matters of importance, bear testimony to the fact that if Bhagwan touches you, everything we do becomes easy, and it is indeed a blessing. And in these pandemic times of Corona, we pray to Bhagwan. He makes life easy for us and face it with grace. Jai Sai Ram. I would like to thank the team of Samarpan for organizing this smoothly, and we pray that we hope to meet soon as in the normal times. Jai Sai Ram.